Picture this. It's September 1942. A young psychiatrist is standing in a bleak, freezing line just outside a Nazi concentration camp. He's staring dead ahead at an SS officer who is casually deciding who lives and who dies. At this exact moment, nobody in that line really knew the full, unimaginable extent of the atrocities going on. Most thought they were just arriving at some temporary holding camp, but the sheer, mind-bending horror of their reality was about to come crashing down.
The guard at the front of that line, he just flicked his finger, left or right. Pointing left meant they took literally everything you owned, shaved your head, and sent you to grueling, back-breaking labor. Pointing right, that meant you were deemed unfit for work and sent straight to the gas chamber. Just like that, in a single, careless motion, every prisoner's past life, their entire identity, their dignity, it was all wiped out, gone forever.
So, sitting with that stark, horrifying baseline of human suffering, this explainer of Viktor Frankl's incredible story asks a truly radical question. How on earth can anyone possibly survive, let alone find actual meaning, in a place of such absolute despair? Well, in Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl explains that even when life is stripped down to its most brutal core, a profound shift in mindset can unlock an incredibly unbreakable inner spirit. Section 1. The Ultimate Human Freedom. Let's dive right into this Man's Search for Meaning summary by exploring the most shocking, genuinely counterintuitive realization Frankl had on that terrifying first day. I mean, when everything, and I mean absolutely everything, is stripped away from you, what is actually left? Standing in that line, with zero clue if he was heading to slave labor or straight to his death, Frankl realized something profound. He could still choose to keep his composure. Even when they took his clothes, his life's work, his manuscript, and completely separated him from his family, he retained the ultimate human freedom, the freedom to choose his response. He chose his attitude. It proves that, hey, while our external environment might be completely out of our hands, our internal reality, that is absolutely ours to command. Moving on to Section 2, the Will to Meaning. This right here builds into the central thesis he hammered out during 3 agonizing years in Auschwitz and Dachau. He discovered that surviving wasn't just about physical toughness, you know? It was about having a deep, fundamental reason to just keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Frankl actually outlined 3 specific paths to find meaning, and these are some of the absolute key ideas of his work. First, through work. For him, this meant continually visualizing himself eventually reconstructing that confiscated manuscript. Second, through love. And third, by finding meaning in the sheer endurance of unavoidable suffering. Those 3 pillars, they became his impenetrable mental fortress.
And he applied this in the most unimaginably brutal conditions. Picture this, a freezing march in the dead of winter. The prisoners are in pure, mind-numbing agony, literally being beaten by guards just for pulling their caps over their ears to stay warm. But in that desperate, horrific moment, Frankl retreated into his own mind. He pictured his wife. He saw her smile, heard the way she talked. That rich, inner spiritual life literally kept him alive when his physical body was shutting down. He discovered that while your body can be beaten, broken, and forced to kneel in the mud, your spirit, it remains entirely unconquerable. He grasped that love really is the ultimate, highest goal we can ever aspire to. In fact, the main lessons here point directly to love as the ultimate salvation. It's this vital, untouchable force that can sustain us through the darkest imaginable places.
All right, Section 3, the science of logotherapy. To really wrap our heads around the deep psychology behind this insane level of resilience, we've got to look at the scientific framework Frankl built out of the ashes of these experiences, the Third Viennese School of Psychotherapy.
So the crucial takeaway here is that Frankl developed logotherapy specifically to cure what he called existential frustration. Basically, that's the deep mental anguish and anxiety we feel when we literally don't know what our life's meaning is. It's that awful feeling that can drag us down into total existential despair. He saw it firsthand in the camps. The people who lived without a why were always the ones who struggled the most to survive.
Comparing Frankl to the guys who came before him, this book summary highlights a massive, massive shift in psychology. While Sigmund Freud and Alfred Adler were all focused on psychoanalytical drives and this individualistic pursuit of power, Frankl hit the brakes. He believed that the search for existential meaning is our absolute #1 motivating force. We don't just crave pleasure or power. Above all else, we desperately need a why to our existence.
Section 4, Choosing Your Own Way. Now, when we're looking at personal growth and true self-improvement,
The million-dollar question is how we actually apply these monumental, heavy concepts to our own daily, modern struggles, our careers, and our relationships.
While Frankl argues for a profound, total shift in perspective. You know how we usually wander around constantly asking, what is the meaning of life? Frankl says, actually, scratch that. That's totally the wrong approach. We shouldn't be asking what the meaning of life is. Instead, we have to wake up and realize that life is the one asking us.
This completely flips everything you know about purpose right on its head. True meaning isn't some hidden treasure you just stumble upon. It's a responsibility you take. This means true self-improvement comes from taking immense, radical responsibility for your actions and your mindset in every single moment, no matter what crazy obstacle is standing in front of you.
Section 5. Key lessons for success. Let's distill all this incredible wisdom into some actionable life lessons drawn straight from the book's most powerful insights. These are the principles that absolutely bridge the gap between merely surviving and truly thriving.
First off, Frankl completely redefines true success with this totally counterintuitive warning. The more you aim directly at success or happiness, the more you're going to miss it. Seriously. Instead, success has to ensue as an unintended byproduct of your personal dedication to a cause way greater than yourself. Basically, put your head down, do the meaningful work, and the success will follow precisely because you stopped obsessing over it. Now, when you're facing intense failure, fear, or just a really messy life transition, keep this key idea in your back pocket. Giving yourself some grace during impossible, chaotic situations is actually a sign of resilience and sanity. It is completely normal to have an abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation. You don't have to be perfectly put together when your whole world is turning upside down. Also, any journey toward greatness requires enduring the fire. You want to give light, you have to endure the burning. But Frankl notes something incredibly powerful here. Suffering ceases to be suffering the absolute second it finds a meaning, like the meaning of a sacrifice. If life inherently contains suffering, we have to go out and find goals that are actually worth suffering for.
And then there's this brutally honest truth, something that echoes the ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus perfectly. External hardships, they don't define your character, they merely expose it. Circumstance does not make the man, it reveals him to himself. The camp stripped away every ounce of superficiality, leaving absolutely nothing but the raw, unfiltered truth of who a person chose to be.
Section 6. Answering life's ultimate question. After 3 horrific years of testing these philosophies in literally the most extreme laboratory imaginable, liberation finally arrived, which brings us to the emotional climax of our explainer. Imagine this, just days after his camp was finally liberated, Frankl was walking through the newly freed, wide-open countryside around the grounds. Suddenly, he was overwhelmed by this incredible, rushing wave of gratitude. The crushing, suffocating burden of the past 3 years finally lifted. In that exact moment, he physically and mentally just ceased to suffer. Falling to his knees right there in the open fields, reciting these words, he realized he had survived the absolute worst thing that life could ever possibly throw at a human being. By surviving it without losing his humanity and holding fiercely on to his will to meaning, he had completely set his spirit free. As Frankl so beautifully laid out for us, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Between a stimulus and your response, there is a space. And right there, in that tiny space, lies our ultimate power to choose. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. At the end of the day, we are entirely defined by our choices. Because the innate, unavoidable condition of life absolutely guarantees that every single one of us will face suffering at some point. So the final question life is asking you right now is this. When the fire comes, will you choose to surrender to the despair, or will you uncover your ultimate freedom, step into that quiet space between stimulus and response, and choose to thrive anyway?